Well, welcome. Today I am going to be speaking to the concept of gold diggers, and that means that in today's session my target audience will be the women. I'm going to talk about what I think is a slightly different perspective held by a lot of people, but before I start today's session and before I go into the whole concept of gold digging, let me perhaps lay a few foundations. You have probably heard me say before that all is fair in love and war, and you've heard me say before that sex is war, which means that all is fair in love and sex. Now that in many ways has different interpretations and different meanings. The way I use such a sentence applies more so to the fact that in the sexual marketplace, in the dating marketplace, what women want and what men want are not always the same. For example, a man wants as much quantity and as much variety of sex, and in exchange he wants to give as little resources or as little access to his money, fame, influence, power as he can. That is the game we play. We want to spend as little as possible, but we want to get as much as possible. Women play a very different game, or they should play a very different game, which is to obtain the most amount of resources and to give out as little sex as possible, and to give out as little of their bodies as possible. Now, women also want quantity and variety. However, recognizing that men, for us, when we date, the reason we go on dates is simply to have sex. We're not there to make you friends. We're not there to find out what your political perspectives are. We don't care much about your granny's cats or granny's pets. We simply date you as a way of auditioning for the opportunity for sex. The more sex we can get, the happier we are. The more variety we can obtain at the cheapest price, the happier we are. Recognizing that men are looking to take, women play a different game, which is to conserve, to get as much resources as they need or as much as they want, and in exchange to play the game of obtaining what they want much smarter than the way men play the game. Now, whoever wins that game is the winner. You've heard the saying that finders keepers, losers weepers. The person who plays that game better effectively wins. Dating is war. I am speaking specifically to the dating marketplace. Now, what men do in the marriage marketplace is slightly different, because we are thinking more long term. We're looking for a partner for life. We're looking for someone to share our lives with, and therefore we approach the marriage marketplace with a different perspective. We do not see dating as war. We see a union. We come with a mindset of the principle of fair play, because we're looking for a long-term investment. However, in the dating marketplace, it is war. Now, what that means is women recognizing what men truly want, and recognizing that what you have is beauty and youth. You should be slightly more prudent and intelligent with the use of your time and the use of your beauty. Many people frown at the concept of gold diggers. You've heard people label women as gold diggers. That is the concept that I've always recommended, contrary to what people think. And I'm going to paint two scenarios just to set the scene. Young women are told that it's wrong to be a gold digger, to choose a man based on his resources or wealth, or to think from the perspective of what she can get from the man. They are encouraged to think about love or to choose a man based on his looks, someone who is attractive. Most people believe that that is an intelligent way to think about the dating marketplace. I beg to differ. For example, I believe that any quality or attribute that you have which is incidental to who you are is something that you were gifted. It's not something that one can lay claim to having achieved. For example, your height, your beauty, the shape of your face. These are things that had nothing to do with what you achieved. You were born that way. Things you acquire, on the other hand, are things to be admired. For someone to go out into the world and to make something of himself or herself is worth and worthy of admiration. So your attitude and your philosophy and your activity in this life positions you for you to create money, power, influence, fame, and a network of people. That is something that you have created. Now, sometimes some people are born into wealthy families, but those are usually exceptions rather than the rule. Most of us have to work for what we have. A woman, therefore, who chooses a man based on his accomplishments, although she is and will be considered a gold digger, should be proud, because what that means is that she has the insight and she has the ability to choose a man who has made something of himself. You see, men, generally, we're not given things. We have to make ourselves into who we wish to become. Women, on the other hand, you're born with what men want, which is beauty. And therefore, there is very little needed on your part if you are beautiful and remain youthful and remain attractive. Men will line up in large numbers for the opportunity to pay your bills for the rest of your life. And all we want is to be associated with that beauty. That is how powerful beauty is. Therefore, the concept of gold digging, I think, is wrongly portrayed in society today. I think that is what young women should aspire to be. Now, I'm not saying it's something that should be done in a calloused way. It shouldn't be done negligently. However, the idea of thinking about what you can exchange, what you have, which is beauty and youth, and what you want in return, should be at the forefront of your heart. The idea that you choose a man based on his looks, his height, tall, dark, and handsome, these are things that fade. Not all of them, but beauty fades. A man's looks fades. The young, athletic, attractive-looking man in his 20s becomes, a fat, unattractive man in his 50s. He might still have his height. So it's important to remember that it's much easier to lose virtues and attributes that are incidental to yourself and your life than it is to lose what you've created, such as your association, your network, your net worth, your wealth, things you've built, influence, power. These are much harder to lose, because once you've created wealth or you've created influence, a network, even if you lose your wealth, the good thing about that is, first of all, you had to become the kind of person deserving of that wealth, and therefore it's easy for you to regain or rebuild. whatever you may have lost, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so. The point being that the character traits are already in you. Beauty and looks, on the other hand, once you've lost it, for men particularly, you have lost it. Men do not go into enhancement surgeries and makeup to the extent that women do. So, being a gold digger should not be something that is seen to be a diss or an insult. Women, my advice to you is for you to think about how to convert your beauty into resources. Now, how you play this game is entirely up to you, but those who play this game well have a long life ahead of them, and one that doesn't involve or include regret. In the last few weeks, we have seen the trial between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. At the core of this lawsuit is the fact that women want resources. They want resources to come into your life. They want resources to remain in your life, and they want resources when they leave. At the core of this whole lawsuit is money. Now, I have no issue with that. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is a woman who played the cards very, very poorly. Now, let me move Amber Heard to the side and talk about the Me Too movement. I was fascinated, though not surprised, but I was fascinated nonetheless with the Me Too movement when it started. I was rather intrigued when I looked at the people who were the co-founders, the founder and the members that she had, who started the Me Too movement. One of the things I observed was sadly, these were women who had gone past, in my opinion, the expiration date in terms of beauty. They got to a point in life where they were unhappy that they did not cash their beauty at the early stages of their lives, when they were at the peak of their youth and beauty, and they had a gripe against men, and therefore they sought opportunities and ways to get money, because at the end of the day, women simply want money and resources. Now, that is not to say that there weren't men who behaved badly, but like I said, and I've said so many times, dating is war. The sexual marketplace is a place of war, and all is fair in love and sex. Women in their 20s freely exchange their bodies for what I think are pathetic resources. They exchange their bodies for lingeries and accessories and wristwatches and access to trendy bars and champagne and food. Eventually the beauty runs out. They realize that the man has moved on to a younger, more attractive, newer model, and that creates a resentment in women's hearts. Those who, as we saw in the case in the UK, where one of the prince was being sued by a woman who claimed to have been part of a group of women coerced and lured into giving sex to the prince when she was too young. Again, my intention is not to opine on the case. Again, if you look at the woman, what you find is these are women who've gone past 30, are no longer attractive. Women like the Me Too movement, women who I wouldn't touch with a 100-meter pole, even if you paid me. What you find is when a woman is young and when a woman has youth, she has power, she has influence, because she has beauty. Men will move heaven and hell to give you what you want, if you have beauty. Now, my message today is that you have to be intelligent as a woman and be an intelligent gold digger and cash in, convert your beauty into resources as early as possible. We know that there are several benefits of being beautiful, of being youthful. Most women recognize when the power they have, when they dress up, They go to bars or go to restaurants, go to nightclubs. The very beautiful women, those in 9s and 10s, those who are dressed well, those who look charming, they do not have to wait on the line. They are ushered into the venue for free. They are moved to the VIP section. A woman goes into a restaurant. She gets free drinks because she's beautiful. Unfortunately, young women are not taught that all of those benefits that they receive are the wrong benefits. They are not the right benefits to focus on. Access to drinks, partying, access to attractive men, access to fame and fortune without any resources to come with that. Benefits of free membership in the gym, discounts in the gym. These are all a waste of your beauty. These are a waste of your youth. Every woman has up until age 30 before the writing on the wall changes. Therefore, my view is that as early as you can, forgive me for saying this, but I think as young as 14 and 15, you already know how much power you have. You can see men drool. You can see boys drool over you, want to do anything for you. 14, 15, we know today that women who are that young are having sex with people who are in their peer group, age group. But we also know that a woman who is 14 and 15 is still sought after by older men. There is a caveat, however. You get emancipated at age 18. Between 14, 15 and 18, you have 4 to 5 years to maximize free resources, because no man would want to touch you when you're 14 or 15. He has hope. He thinks, I'm making an investment. She'll turn 18 at some point, but we all know things happen. You move on, he moves on, but he's invested so much. So from the age of about 14 or 15, a woman has to start recognizing the power she has. But rather than receive what I think are intangible benefits, I want you to think about how you can convert these benefits to tangible resources. Men love attractive women. We see beauty as something inspiring, something that has a unique effect on men. We want you around like a muse. As a matter of fact, if you want to see the power of a woman's beauty, one of the best places would be the gym. A woman who is a 9 or a 10 in beauty, 7 or an 8, if you move into an environment where men are training and you start training with or around them, if you observed the performance of the men before you arrived and the performance after you've arrived, you see a sudden shift. Some are working at 20% more, 25% more, all trying to impress you. You have testosterone kicking in. As a matter of fact, let me give you a good analogy. Sometime last week, I was in the gym, and there were some younger boys who were training. One of them, I observed he came in with his girlfriend, a young girl, an attractive young girl, and he moved down to the section where people were deadlifting. There was a man and another guy, young boys, who were deadlifting. Immediately I noticed the shift in the two boys. The boy with the girlfriend asked if he could join. Now, I love observing people and observing human dynamics. And they agreed. And the guy who just joined, it was, I believe, perhaps his first week. So his technique was very poor. But his wife, or his girlfriend was present. The other two guys were much more experienced. And they were lifting much heavier than they started with. Why? Because there was a very attractive woman who was watching both or all of them. The ones who were there before kept lifting heavier and heavier. the guy who just arrived, trying to save face, refused to give up, obviously because he didn't want to lose face in the presence of his girlfriend. I assume she is. And he kept lifting. Now, the weight became quite significant. And on one of the sessions, I noticed that if he moved the weight, he would have pulled his back. It was very obvious. And he tried. And I kept watching the three men, the three young boys. The whole point was to see at what stage will a man stop and stop himself, save himself from himself. And it required, and it took me stepping in and saying, I think this is too heavy for you. You're not experienced, as these other guys are. And more than anything, there's a competition that you're not aware of that is taking place. The other two guys, they want to show they're better than you, simply because your girlfriend is attractive and is present. And you are refusing. Your ego has kicked in. You're refusing to say, no, this is a bit much, because you do not want to lose face. Now, that is a very simple example of what people might consider to be quite trivial. However, if you extrapolate this to society, men will move heaven and hell to impress a woman. Women have always had a powerful influence on men. What that means is, if you are attractive and if you were young, recognize a few things. Between 18 and 30, you have 13 years. Those are the most fruitful years of your life in terms of attractiveness and also in terms of your ability to reproduce. I put those two things into two groups. The first being your sexual marketplace value, SMV. The second being your reproductive fertility value, RFV. You have more eggs, more quantity of eggs, and more quality of eggs between 18 and all the way up to about 27. From 28, the quantity of eggs you have and the quality of eggs you have to have start to reduce. From 30 and above, you start to lose a significant amount of your ability to reproduce life. From 35, you go into what we call geriatric pregnancy. Subconsciously, men recognize a huge difference, and we assign a huge difference to 20s as we do to 30s and 40s and 50s. Once you've gone past the 30 mark, the desirability of a woman declines significantly. You might still be attractive, but we want the younger, fresher, newer model. And what that means is that you have 13 years if you start at 18. But if you start at 14, you have an additional 5 years, which is 18 years in total, to capitalize and to maximize converting that beauty into resources. The question then is, how do you do this? If what I am suggesting is correct, and I think perhaps is worthy of note, stop asking for material things. These are poor gifts, bags, shoes, dresses, dinner dates, restaurants, champagne. This are all a waste. You should be asking for tangible resources. You want your beauty to be paid for by the highest bidder. I recommend to women to date multiple men. Stop dating exclusively in your 20s, because your 20s will only last for 9 years and then it will be gone. You should be asking for things such as assets that appreciate in value, not assets that depreciate in value. Bags and watches and accessories all are liabilities. Anything that requires maintenance by you in terms of payments should be avoided. A car should be avoided, because even if a man buys you a car, you have to pay for the upkeep. Instead, go for assets that appreciate in value. You want stocks, you want cryptocurrencies, you want NFTs, you want a deposit on a house, you want real estate, you want land, you want gold, you want to get as much appreciating assets that you can. I would say bonds, but in today's day and age, it doesn't really make much sense. You're better off collecting cash. And this simply means is when you're dealing with men, when they ask you what you want, in a very interesting way, you don't have to ask for cash, because people who are labeled gold diggers usually are those who are always asking for money. Be open and tell them, listen, you do not want all of this depreciating resources and assets. What you want is one Bitcoin. Tell them you have a hard wallet. You've never owned a Bitcoin. You would like to own a Bitcoin. So they should buy you a Bitcoin, and even if it's a token Bitcoin, and send it to you. Tell them you want different types of cryptocurrencies. Tell them you want NFTs, things that can be transferred to you and they're completely in your possession. Don't collect cars that are bought in someone else's name or leased in someone else's name. If you're 18, tell them you want a house. They may not be able to buy a house for you, but they can put a down payment, a deposit for a house under your name, and then you can find someone to rent that house, so that when you turn 30, 35, you have accumulated so much wealth. Now let me put this into context so you can see how significant this could be. Let's say you're 18 years, and let's say you're dating 5 different men. I'm not saying you're sleeping with 5 different men. When I say dating, I mean you're going out to movies, you're in communication with 5 different people. You shouldn't be dating one person exclusively. You should not be in a mono relationship until at least 27. Those 5 people should be responsible for perhaps paying into your index fund. You want to have stocks. You can get an index fund where each of them pays in £100 every month for access to your beauty. Now, I'm not suggesting that you're whoring yourself to every single one of those 5 people. If you're intelligent, you can obtain as much resources and give out very little. It was stunning to most women when they realized that you can string a man along for 4, 5, 6 years and not have sex with him, and he will give you as much resources as he can. The art of how to do that is what you have to learn as a woman, because once 30 comes, we look for the newer, the fresher model. You want those 5 people paying into an index fund. Now, for example, if you paid £500 every month into an index fund, between age 18 and age 30, you will have roughly £220,000 by the time you turn 30. That is almost £250,000. If you leave that money in that account until you turn 40, that would move up to roughly just over £500,000. And all of that has come from gifts that were given to you. Now, I know, for example, that I cannot tell you the date I went on when I was 20 and what the meal tasted like. These are things that were spent and forgotten. Whereas if you collect, rather than spend or have him spend £100 on drinks for you at a bar, he should give you in exchange £100 worth of a cryptocurrency, of a Bitcoin. And you just let that sit in your account and let it compound. The point being, your beauty will fade. Beauty is like a depreciating asset. After a number of years, usually 30, it depreciates very, very fast. Women become resentful when they have no attention. Attention is the lifeblood of most women. You want to feel appreciated, you want to feel attractive, you want to feel loved and desired. Beyond 30, that desire in the eyes of men starts to wane. And that simply means you need to get better at being able to negotiate and leverage your beauty. Remember this, men, we play a game, which is we want the most sex for as little resources in exchange. Play the right